Space was supposed to be quiet here. The alien exploration fleet drifted through a region marked in every star map as empty. No trade routes, no civilizations, no reason to slow down. This part of the galaxy had been scanned thousands of years ago and declared dead. That was why the first alert made no sense. A junior sensor officer noticed it first. A faint signal. Old. Weak. Repeating. At first, the commander dismissed it. Background noise. A dying star. Cosmic dust. But the signal did not fade. It repeated again. And again. Always the same pattern. The fleet slowed. More scans followed. What they found caused quiet confusion across the command deck. A planet. Small. Blue. Alive. It orbited an average yellow star. Nothing special. No galactic marker. No registration code. No record of first contact. By galactic standards, this world did not exist. The commander frowned. That alone was strange. Every intelligent species, no matter how weak, was catalogued. Even those who destroyed themselves were logged. This one was not. They zoomed in. The planet showed signs of industry. Lights on the dark side. Atmospheric pollution. Artificial structures in orbit. Primitive, yes, but active. Someone asked the obvious question. How did we miss this? No one answered. The sensors picked up old machines drifting far beyond the planet. Crude probes. Metal shells scarred by time. They should not have reached that far with such basic technology. And yet, there they were, still transmitting faint signals into the dark. Not messages of surrender. Not calls for help. They were greetings. Messages sent outward into space, repeating for decades. No response had ever come back. Until now. The commander felt a faint chill. Civilizations that sent signals like this usually did not survive long. They attracted attention. Predators. Empires. Yet this planet still lives. Then another alert sounded. Several fleet systems went offline. No alarms. No explosions. Just silence. Navigation screens froze. External drones stopped responding. The engineers rushed to diagnose the problem. There was no sign of attack. No energy spike. No weapon discharge. It was as if something had simply touched their systems and turned them off. The commander ordered a full halt. Long-range scans showed no hostile ships. No stealth fields. Nothing. The fleet was alone. That was when the first officer spoke quietly. Commander, the planet's satellites just moved. The screen zoomed in. Dozens of small objects shifted position around the blue world. Not randomly. Not in panic. With purpose. They formed patterns. Lines. Layers. Defense formations. The commander stared. They detected us. The sensor officer swallowed. They detected us before we arrived. That was impossible. The fleet used advanced masking technology. No unregistered world should have been able to see them coming. And yet, the evidence was clear. A decision had to be made. Doctrine required caution, but curiosity won. Send a probe, the commander ordered. Unarmed. Passive systems only. A single probe detached from the fleet. It glided forward, silent and slow, carrying scanners and recorders. No weapons. No signals. It crossed the invisible line between deep space and the outer reach of the star system. For 3 seconds, everything was normal. Then the probe vanished. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Gone. No debris. No explosion. No energy trace. It was as if reality had closed around it. The command deck erupted in noise. Officers spoke at once. Sensors were recalibrated. Systems were rebooted. Nothing. The probe no longer existed. Before anyone could speak again, a new signal appeared. This one was different. It did not come from the planet. It did not come from a satellite. It came from everywhere at once. The signal was clean, strong, perfectly translated. A single sentence filled every display, every audio channel, every interface in the fleet. You are observing a protected system. The voice was calm, neither hostile nor welcoming, just certain. The commander felt something tighten in his chest. This was not how first contact was supposed to feel. There were protocols, rituals, displays of superiority. This was none of that. The message continued. Your presence has been noted. A pause. Do not advance. The fleet stood frozen in space. Below them, the small blue planet turned slowly, peacefully, as if nothing unusual was happening at all. The commander finally understood the truth that would soon shake the galaxy. This world had never been helpless. It had been waiting. The alien fleet did not move. For the first time in its long history, it simply stayed still, suspended in space, as if motion itself had become dangerous. No engines fired. No signals were sent. The blue planet below continued to rotate, clouds drifting naturally, oceans reflecting starlight. From a distance, it looked harmless, peaceful. That was the most unsettling part. The commander ordered total silence. No transmissions. No scans that could be detected. The fleet's masking systems were already compromised, but instinct demanded caution. On the command deck, analysts worked in tense quiet. They were no longer asking what this planet was. They were asking why it had been erased. The galactic database was vast. It contained the rise and fall of millions of civilizations. Species that burned bright and vanished. Species that crawled into the stars and were crushed by stronger powers. Even failed worlds were recorded, tagged, and archived. But this one had nothing. No first contact report. No extinction marker. No war record. It was as if someone had deliberately skipped a page in history. A senior archivist spoke at last. "Commander, I found something. Not a record. An absence." She brought the data to the main display. Ancient survey routes appeared. Paths taken by early galactic explorers tens of thousands of years ago. One route passed near this star system. Near it, not through it. The explorers changed course, the archivist said slowly. No explanation logged. Just a deviation. The commander frowned. Could be a stellar anomaly. It would have been noted, she replied. But there is no reason given. Just silence. Silence again. That word carried new weight now. The analysts dug deeper, pulling fragments from forgotten backups and corrupted archives. Broken data clusters began to form a picture, blurred, incomplete, but disturbing. This star system had been avoided. Not declared dangerous. Not quarantined. Simply left alone. Another officer spoke up. "Commander, we've reconstructed fragments from pre-modern probes. Extremely old. They passed near this region." "And?" the commander asked. "They stopped transmitting shortly after." "Destroyed." "No," the officer said. "Their final logs show no damage. No combat. Just confusion. Systems failing. Sensors returning contradictory data. Then nothing." The room grew colder. This was not the pattern of a hostile empire. Hostile forces announced themselves through destruction. This was something quieter, more controlled. Below them, the planet's satellites remained locked in their defensive patterns. None advanced. None retreated. They were watching. The commander made a decision that would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. "Pull all cultural data," he ordered. "Radio emissions. Visual signals. Anything this species has sent into space." The analysts complied. What followed was chaos. Not of noise, but of information. Humanity has been loud. For centuries, they had flooded space with signals. Music, mathematics, arguments, stories, war broadcasts, distress calls, celebrations. Silence broken again and again by desperate hope that someone, somewhere, was listening. The alien linguists struggled to keep up. The emotional range was staggering. Rage and compassion, humor and grief, violence and tenderness, often side by side. One analyst whispered, "They broadcast their conflicts." Another replied, "They broadcast their failures." That was unusual. Most species hide weakness. Humanity displayed it openly, as if daring the universe to judge them. But something changed over time. The older signals were chaotic and naive. The newer ones were measured, deliberate, sparse. And then, eventually, they stopped altogether. The last outward human broadcast was centuries old. The commander leaned forward. "Why did they go quiet?" A cultural analyst answered carefully. "Patterns suggest disappointment. They expected contact. They expected a response. When none came, they adapted." "How?" "They stopped talking," the analyst said, "and started listening." A chill passed through the room. Listening implied patience. The fleet's AI systems began modeling human technological growth based on recovered data. At first, the projections seemed normal. Slow progress, internal wars, environmental strain. Then came the divergence. Human technology accelerated, not outward, but inward. Defensive systems, energy storage, planetary coordination. Artificial intelligence focused not on expansion, but prediction. They weren't racing to the stars, an engineer muttered. They were fortifying the home. Another alert interrupted them. "Commander," said the sensor officer. The planet just powered something up. The display shifted. Deep beneath Earth's surface, massive energy reserves are activated. Not reactors, networks. Layered systems buried under cities, oceans, mountains. These were not new constructions. They were old. Very old. They've been running dark for a long time, the officer said. Perfectly masked. For how long? The commander asked. The answer came after a long pause. At least 2 of their centuries. Possibly more. 2 centuries of preparation. 2 centuries of silence. The commander realized the terrifying truth. Humanity did not build in response to the fleet. They had built in anticipation of something like it. A junior officer, shaken, asked the question no one wanted to say aloud. What if they thought the galaxy chose to ignore them? No one corrected him. Because the evidence suggested exactly that. The galaxy had cataloged, traded, warred, and evolved, while Earth waited alone. No allies. No watchers. No warnings about what lurked beyond their sky. They survived anyway. Another system flickered online, this one not forced, but allowed. A narrow data channel opened between the fleet and the planet. No message yet. Just a connection. The commander hesitated. Accepting meant acknowledgement. Declining meant fear. He accepted. Data streamed in. Not an attack. Not propaganda. History. Human history. Plagues that wiped out millions. Wars that nearly ended them. Near misses with extinction caused by their own weapons. Environmental collapse narrowly avoided through global sacrifice. And through it all, one repeating theme. They solved their problems alone. No external saviors. No ancient benefactors. No guiding empire. Just stubborn survival. The final data packet contained a simple statement, translated cleanly into galactic standard. We assumed the universe was silent by choice. The commander closed his eyes. Because now he understood the mistake. The galaxy had not found humanity. Humanity had found the galaxy first, and decided it could not be trusted. Before the channel closed, one last line appeared, short, calm, and heavy with meaning. Observation is permitted. Interference is not. The connection ended. The fleet remained frozen, surrounded by invisible systems they could not map, facing a species that had turned loneliness into armor. Far across the galaxy, automated relays began to whisper the same impossible news. A living world had been found. A forgotten species had endured, and it was not asking for permission anymore. The silence after the transmission was worse than any threat. The alien fleet remained perfectly still, engines idle, weapons cold. No orders were given for several long moments. The commander stared at the fading echo of the human message, replaying it in his mind. Observation is permitted. Interference is not. It was not a warning spoken in fear. It was a boundary spoken with confidence. Around him, officers exchanged uneasy glances. In every known first contact scenario, the discovering power held the advantage. Curiosity came first. Control followed. That was the natural order of the galaxy. This situation felt reversed. The commander finally spoke. Maintain position. No aggressive actions. All data streams remain passive. Several officers relaxed slightly. That was the safe choice. But not everyone agreed. On the outer edge of the formation, far from the command vessel, a smaller contingent of ships received the same orders. Their leader, a minor faction lord from a young but ambitious species, listened in silence. He replayed the human message once. Then again. Each time, his irritation grew. A protected system, he scoffed to his subcommanders. By whom? A species that never left its gravity well. They disabled our probe, one officer said cautiously. By unknown means, the Lord snapped. That proves nothing. Any species can build a trap. That does not make them powerful. His faction had risen quickly in recent cycles by bold action. Hesitation was a weakness. And weakness, in the galaxy, invited extinction. This fleet is here to explore, he continued. We will not let an unregistered world dictate terms. The subcommanders hesitated. They had all seen the data, the missing records, the silent probes, the moving satellites. But ambition overruled caution. Prepare a limited test, the Lord ordered. One strike. Minimal force. We will see how real this protection truly is. The order was given quietly, routed through private channels. No signal reached the main command vessel. A single ship broke formation. From Earth's perspective, nothing changed. The planet continued to turn. Weather systems moved. Cities slept and woke beneath the atmosphere. No alarms rang. No panic spread. That alone should have been a warning. The attacking ship armed a low-yield kinetic weapon, enough to cripple a satellite, nothing more. A test. A probe with teeth. The weapon fired. It never reached its target. Halfway through its trajectory, space itself seemed to bend. Not violently. Not dramatically. The projectile slowed, its momentum bleeding away as if caught in invisible fluid. Then it stopped. For a fraction of a second, it hung there and vanished. The attacking ship's system screamed. Power fluctuations surged through its core. Navigation collapsed. Communications went dark. Every display filled with static, then cleared to black. The ship did not explode. It simply shut down. Inside, the crew struggled as gravity failed and emergency systems refused to respond. They were alive, unharmed, and completely helpless. Back on the command vessel, alarms finally sounded. What happened? The commander demanded. Sensors flooded the display with data, contradictory, incomplete, terrifying. One of our ships lost all power, the sensor officer reported. No damage detected. No weapons fire detected. It's intact. Cause? We don't know. The commander's gaze snapped to the planet. The human satellites had not moved. No fleets launched. No energy spikes visible from the surface. Earth looked exactly the same as it had moments before. That was when a new signal appeared. This one was narrow, directed only at the disabled ship. The commander intercepted it anyway. A human voice filled the bridge. Calm, clear, unemotional. Your vessel has been neutralized. No boasting, no anger, just a fact. You violated the boundary. The commander felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Weapons? He asked softly. The sensor officer shook his head. No detectable weapons discharge. No known technology signature. It's as if they rewrote the ship's operating state. Rewrote. That word spread through the bridge like poison. The human voice continued. Your crew is safe. They will remain so as long as no further violations occur. A pause. This was a demonstration. The channel closed. Across the fleet, shock rippled outward. What they had just witnessed shattered centuries of strategic assumptions. Humanity had not destroyed the ship. They had taken control of it without touching it. The ambitious faction lord, floating powerless in his darkened vessel, finally understood his error. Too late. On Earth, deep beneath layers of rock and steel, systems monitored the encounter with silent precision. Human operators watched the disabled alien ship drift harmlessly, its power systems frozen in a perfectly stable state. No damage. No suffering. That had been deliberate. This confirms capability, one analyst said. They crossed the line exactly as predicted. Another nodded. Probability modeling was accurate. A third voice, older and heavier, spoke from the shadows of the command chamber. They needed to see restraint, she said. Fear alone would have forced escalation. Humanity had learned long ago that overwhelming force invited retaliation. Control invited hesitation. And hesitation created space for understanding. Above Earth, alien commanders argued in hushed, urgent tones. This technology is beyond known limits, one officer said. We must withdraw. If we retreat now, we look weak, another countered. Other empires will hear of this. They will hear of it regardless, the archivist replied. And when they do, they will ask why a single unregistered species could do this. The commander raised a hand in silence. We made contact, he said, and we made a mistake. He stared at the image of Earth, no longer seeing a quiet world, but a coiled presence. We assumed weakness because they were alone. He turned to his officers. We were wrong. Before any new orders could be given, another message arrived. This one broadcast to the entire fleet. Humanity was no longer speaking to one ship. It was speaking to all of them. We understand curiosity, the human voice said. We once shared it. Images accompanied the words. Visual records of early human spaceflight. Fragile machines. Risky launches. Failures celebrated as progress. We also understand fear, the voice continued. Images shifted. Nuclear fire. Collapsing cities. Environmental ruin. We learn what happens when power is used without restraint. The images stopped. The final words were simple. We will not repeat that mistake. The fleet's translators rendered the message flawlessly, but meaning went deeper than language. Humanity was not improvising. They were executing a philosophy forged by survival. The ambitious faction lord's ship drifted silently, now surrounded by faint human markers, guidance beacons, not weapons. A clear path home, if they chose to take it. The message ended with one final statement. Remain at your current distance. Dialogue may continue. The commander exhaled slowly. This was no longer first contact. This was negotiation under conditions dictated entirely by the species they had underestimated. Far beyond this star system, automated galactic relays detected unusual data traffic. Reports of a lost ship, of impossible technology, of a world that enforced boundaries without violence. Whispers began to spread. A forgotten species had drawn a line in space, and the galaxy had just crossed it. The alien fleet did not retreat, but it no longer advanced. Distance, once a meaningless number measured in light seconds, had become a wall. Every commander in the formation understood it now. The space around Earth was not empty. It was managed. The commander ordered a full internal review. No outward scans. No probing signals. Only analysis of what they already had. If they could not look closer, they would look deeper. What are they really? He asked the fleet's senior analysts. Not what they show us. What they became. The answer did not come quickly. Humanity's data was vast, chaotic, and emotionally dense. Unlike most civilizations, humans documented everything, failures included. They recorded arguments, regrets, doubts. Their history was not polished. It was raw. That rawness made it dangerous. The analysts began mapping a timeline. At first, humanity followed a familiar path. Industrial growth, expansion of population, exploitation of resources, internal conflict. A species arguing with itself about identity, borders, belief. Then came the age of near ending. Records showed multiple moments where humanity should have vanished. Nuclear brinkmanship, engineered diseases, climate collapse. Artificial intelligence is almost turning against its creators. Each time, probability models predicted extinction. Each time, humanity survived. How? One officer asked. A cultural analyst answered quietly. They adapted faster than they argued. Barely. The commander leaned closer as the data unfolded. After their last major global crisis, something shifted. Not outwardly. There was no sudden peace. No golden age. Instead, fear changed direction. Humans stopped fearing each other as the greatest threat. They began fearing what they could not see. Unknowns. The universe. They never found us, an analyst said. No matter how loudly they called. Humanity's early broadcasts had been hopeful, curious, almost naive. They assumed someone would answer. That someone older and wiser would guide them, warn them, welcome them. No one did. The silence was total. At first, humans blamed distance. Then time. Then chance. Eventually, they blamed intent. They concluded the galaxy knew about them, the analyst continued, and chose not to respond. That conclusion changed everything. Human governments, once divided, began sharing certain secrets. Not publicly, quietly. Research that crossed borders. Projects buried under civilian budgets. Networks built beneath cities, oceans, and ice. Not to reach the stars. To defend the planet. The commander felt a slow, sinking realization. They assumed we were either indifferent or hostile. Yes, the analyst said. And they prepared for both. The fleet's AI models adjusted their projections. The curves spiked sharply upward. Human technology did not advance evenly. It specialized. Prediction algorithms. Decentralized command systems. Redundant infrastructure. Artificial intelligence designed not to rule, but to advise under uncertainty. They trained their machines to expect betrayal, an engineer muttered. Another analyst corrected him. No, they trained them to expect absence. That was worse. Silence was harder to prepare for than attack. New images appeared on the display. Massive underground facilities. Orbital platforms disguised as debris. Energy collectors hidden inside natural phenomena. All inactive. All masked. All waiting. They built these long before we arrived, the sensor officer said. They weren't rushed. How many? The commander asked. The officer hesitated. We don't know. We can only see what they allow us to see. The room grew quiet. That was the most alarming revelation so far. Humanity controlled the information flow completely. The commander reviewed the moment the disabled ship had been neutralized. The lack of violence. The precision. The restraint. That wasn't a weapon test, he said slowly. No, the archivist replied. It was a policy demonstration. Humanity had not acted emotionally. They had followed procedure, which meant this scenario had been anticipated, planned. Elsewhere in the fleet, panic simmered. Some captains urged immediate withdrawal. Others argued for reinforcements. A few suggested overwhelming force before humanity could escalate. But every proposal ran into the same wall. No one knew what humanity's full capability was. And worse, no one knew what they considered acceptable loss. On Earth, the encounter was being observed just as carefully. Human command chambers were quiet, not tense, focused. Generals stood beside scientists. Civilian leaders watched without speaking. There was no celebration, no fear. This was not a moment of triumph. It was confirmation. They reacted exactly as projected, an analyst said. Curiosity, then hierarchy conflict. A senior official nodded. And someone always tests the fence. Do we escalate posture? Another asked. No, the official replied. Not unless they do. Humanity's greatest strength was not firepower. It was patience shaped by trauma. They had learned, painfully, that rushing to dominate created enemies faster than it created safety. Above Earth, the alien commander requested permission to speak. The request alone sent ripples through the fleet. He opened a narrow channel, broadcasting only intent, not data. This is Fleet Commander Aresh, he said. We acknowledge the boundary. The reply came instantly. Acknowledgement received. No rank challenges. No ceremonial exchange. Straight to the point. We seek understanding, Aresh continued. You are not listed in any galactic record. That is unusual. A pause. Agreed, the human voice replied. It was noticed. Aresh felt exposed. We did not deliberately erase you, he said carefully. But I believe you were overlooked. Silence followed. Then the human answered. Yes. Just that. The simplicity carried weight. We waited. The human continued. We listened. We observed your conflicts from afar. Your empires rise and fall. Your laws change when convenient. Images accompanied the words. Human telescopic records of distant galactic events. Wars. Supernovae. Refugee fleets. You did not see us, the voice said. But we saw you. Aresh swallowed. You chose not to intervene. We chose to survive first, the human replied. Intervention is expensive. That honesty stunned the bridge. No moral speeches. No claims of superiority. Just calculation. Aresh asked the question that mattered. Why reveal yourselves now? The answer did not come immediately. When it did, it was heavier than the threat. Because you crossed a threshold, the human said. And because hiding forever creates a different kind of extinction. The channel remained open. For the first time, Aresh sensed something beneath the calm. Not anger. Weariness. We did not forget you. The human continued. We prepared for you. Not because we hated you, but because no one came when we needed them. That sentence echoed across the fleet. The galaxy had built its order on expansion and classification. Worlds mattered when they were useful. Species mattered when they were visible. Humanity had learned what it meant to be invisible. And instead of disappearing, they had hardened. Aresh lowered his head slightly, a gesture of respect among his kind. The galaxy will hear of this, he said. They will be afraid. We expect that, the human replied. Fear is honest. And if they come in force? A pause. Longer this time. Then they will learn, the human said. What we learned. The channel closed. No threat followed. No display of power. But something far more unsettling settled over the fleet. Humanity did not need to prove itself. It already has. Across the galaxy, fragments of the encounter began leaking through unofficial channels. A disabled ship recovered intact. Impossible restraint. A world that enforced boundaries without conquest. Strategists argued. Philosophers debated. Empires listened. And slowly, a new understanding spread. Humanity was not late to the galactic stage. They had arrived early and spent centuries deciding what kind of species they would be when the galaxy finally noticed them. The first reaction across the fleet was not fear. It was disbelief. Fleet Commander Aresh stood on the bridge long after the channel closed, staring at the quiet blue world below. No weapons powered up. No ships launched. No dramatic gesture followed the conversation. Earth simply waited. That patience spread unease faster than any threat ever could. Commander, an officer said carefully, Long-range relays are lighting up. The encounter is leaking. Aresh nodded. He had expected that. Information always escaped containment, especially when it carried fear with it. Let it spread, he said. This is too large to hide. Across the galaxy, fragmented reports began to circulate through diplomatic backchannels, trade networks, and military intelligence webs. An unregistered world. A fleet stopped without combat. A ship disabled without damage. A species enforcing borders without conquest. At first, the reports were dismissed as exaggeration. Then sensor data followed. Then recordings. Then silence. That silence, coming from systems that normally overflowed with speculation, was the first real sign something had changed. In the chambers of the major empires, discussions grew tense. How does a pre-expansion species do this? One strategist demanded. They shouldn't, another replied. Which means our assumptions are wrong. Some empires panicked. Defensive fleets were recalled. Border patrols doubled. Old enemies paused their wars, if only briefly, to listen. Others reacted with anger. This is impossible, one warlord declared. If they have such power, they hide it. That is deception. But even among the aggressive powers, hesitation crept in. Deception implied intent. Intent implied planning. And planning implied a scale of foresight that made reckless action dangerous. Back near Earth, the alien fleet remained exactly where it was. No one wanted to be the next to make a mistake. Aresh convened a council of captains. The discussion was unlike any he had led before. We cannot force them, one captain said. They control the engagement space. We cannot retreat without consequence, another argued. The galaxy will interpret it as fear. And if they are watching our communications, a third asked quietly. That silenced the room. Because it was likely true. They haven't disrupted us, the archivist said. Which suggests they are choosing not to. That restraint is intentional. Or strategic, someone muttered. Those are not mutually exclusive, Aresh replied. He looked around the chamber. These were veterans of wars, explorers of dead systems, commanders who had seen civilizations burn. None of that experience helped here. Humanity doesn't want dominance, Aresh said slowly. Not openly. They want recognition on their terms. And control, the captain added. No, Aresh corrected. Boundaries. That word mattered. Humanity had not demanded tribute, had not asked for technology, had not even asked for alliance. They had drawn a line and waited to see who respected it. On Earth, reactions were equally restrained. News of the encounter was not broadcast publicly. Humanity had learned long ago what panic did to reason. Only a small circle of leaders and analysts saw the full picture. What's the probability of a coordinated response? A civilian leader asked. High, an analyst replied. Eventually. And hostile. Depends on how threatened they feel. The leader nodded. So we make sure they feel watched, not cornered. That philosophy had shaped humanity's quiet ascent. Not an overwhelming presence. Just undeniable capability. Above the planet, Aresh made a choice. He requested another channel. The human response came instantly, as before. This is Fleet Commander Aresh, he said. I speak now not as an explorer, but as a representative of a wider galaxy. We are listening, the human voice replied. Aresh drew a careful breath. Your existence has disrupted galactic equilibrium. You must understand the implications. We do, the human said. We planned for them. That honesty struck again. You will be challenged, Aresh continued. Tested. Pressure. Some will come not to talk, but to dominate. Yes, the human replied calmly. And if they do? A pause. Then the galaxy will learn the cost of ignoring us the first time, the human said. Aresh felt the weight of that sentence settle over him. Not as a threat, as a statement of fact. You could have hidden longer, he said. You chose not to. Yes, the human answered. Because silence protects only until it doesn't. Images appeared again. Not weapons. Not fleets. People. Human faces from different eras. Scientists. Farmers. Soldiers. Children. Each looking up at the sky in different centuries, different moments. We were willing to stay small, the human voice said. But not invisible forever. The channel closed. Aresh did not feel dismissed. He felt warned. In the days that followed, the galaxy truly began to hold its breath. The first external fleet arrived at the edge of the system, an empire known for expansion and intimidation. Their ships were larger than Aresh's, their weapons more visible. They stopped at the boundary. They did not advance. That alone sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. A second fleet arrived days later. Then a third. None crossed the line. Instead, something unprecedented happened. They waited. Fleets that would normally posture and threaten now sat in uneasy stillness, studying sensor readouts that refused to give them certainty. Humanity did not address them all. Only one message was broadcast, wide enough for every arriving force to hear. Observation is permitted, the human voice said again. Interference is not. No embellishment. No negotiation. And still, no one tested it. The galaxy began to realize the truth too slowly to stop it from spreading. Power was not being displayed. It was being withheld. Strategists ran simulations. Thousands of them. In almost every scenario where force was used against Earth, the outcome was catastrophic, not just for the attacker, but for surrounding systems. Humanity's defenses were not localized. They were integrated. You don't build like this unless you expect to fight alone, one analyst said in disbelief. That's because they did, another replied. Trade guilds began adjusting routes. Religious orders debated whether humanity was a warning or a test. Philosophers argued whether a species forged by neglect could ever truly trust others. And in quiet corners of the galaxy, smaller, weaker civilizations watched with something dangerously close to hope. For the first time, a species that had been ignored had not vanished. It had endured. Back on the command vessel, Aresh received a final report. Commander, the archivist said, long-term projections indicate a shift. If humanity holds this line, galactic hierarchy will change. How so? Aresh asked. Power will no longer be defined by expansion, she replied, but by the ability to say no and make it stick. Aresh looked once more at Earth. A single world. No empire. No throne. Just a boundary enforced by patience, preparation, and memory. Far across the galaxy, communication traffic slowed. Not because there was nothing to say, but because no one wanted to say the wrong thing. Because now, everyone understood. The quiet species had not been waiting to be discovered. They had been waiting to be taken seriously. And for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy listened. The galaxy did not attack. That, more than anything else, unsettled humanity. For generations, human strategists had modeled first contact in brutal detail. They expected fear. They expected arrogance. They expected violence disguised as diplomacy. They did not expect restraint. Across Earth's hidden command networks, analysts watched as fleet after fleet arrived at the system's boundary and stopped. No probes crossed the line. No weapons charged. Even the most aggressive empires held position, circling like predators unsure whether the prey could bite back. They're afraid, one analyst said. No, another corrected. They're uncertain. That was more dangerous. Uncertainty created hesitation, but it also created planning. Human leadership convened a council that had not met openly in centuries. Civilian representatives, military commanders, scientists, ethicists, voices that rarely agreed on anything now sat in the same room, staring at the same projections. The galaxy is watching, a civilian leader said. Every move we make now becomes precedent. A military commander folded his arms. Precedent cuts both ways. If we show weakness, we don't need to show strength, the ethicist interrupted. They already believe we have it. That silence again. Humanity had learned that fear could be a shield, but it could not be a foundation. We prepared for invasion, the scientist said quietly. Not for this. For what? Someone asked. For being listened to. Above Earth, Fleet Commander Aresh received orders from the Galactic Council. They were confused. No declaration of war. No formal sanctions. No demand for submission. Instead, a request. Determine intent. Aresh almost laughed when he read it. Intent was exactly what humanity had refused to declare outright. He requested another channel. This time, the response came not from a single voice, but several. Human representatives appeared on his display. Different ages, backgrounds, expressions. No uniforms. No hierarchy visible. We are here, one of them said. Speak. Aresh inclined his head. The galaxy does not know how to respond to you. That is understandable, a human replied. We didn't know how to respond to it either. You hold power, Aresh said. Enough to disrupt everything. Why not use it? The humans exchanged brief glances. Because we already know where that path leads, one said. Images appeared, not for intimidation, but context. Human history again. But this time, not survival. Conquest. Empires rising. Colonies taken. Cultures erased. Flags planted in the name of progress. We were not always careful, the human voice said. We learned the cost of winning without restraint. Aresh studied their faces. You could become the dominant force, he said. Many would follow you. Others would submit. Yes, the human answered. And eventually, they would resist. That is the nature of power, Aresh said. That is the nature of unearned power, the human replied. The distinction mattered. Aresh asked the question the council truly wanted answered. What do you want? The humans did not answer immediately. When they did, it was not a demand. We want the galaxy to change how it treats silence, one said. Aresh frowned. Explain. You catalog worlds when they are useful, another continued. You intervene when it benefits stability. You ignore the rest. A third human spoke, voice steady. We were ignored. Not because we were dangerous. Not because we were dead. But because we were inconvenient. Aresh felt the weight of that accusation settle. We do not seek control, the lead human said. We seek guarantees. What kind? Aresh asked. Simple ones, came the reply. No intelligent world left unrecorded. No species allowed to vanish unnoticed. No silence when extinction approaches. Across the galaxy, as fragments of this conversation leaked despite all efforts, reactions were explosive. That would shatter sovereignty, one empire protested. It would expose us, another warned. Smaller civilizations, long ignored, listened in stunned disbelief. Humanity was not asking for tribute. They were asking the galaxy to care. That is not enforceable, Aresh said carefully. The human smiled faintly. It is now. Aresh did not miss the implication. Would you intervene? He asked. We already have, the human replied. Data flooded his display. Records of disasters quietly diverted. Asteroids nudged off course. Plagues slowed by anonymous technology drops. Famine averted by untraceable aid. None of it traced back clearly to Earth. You've been doing this, Aresh whispered. Yes, the human said. Because waiting to be asked costs lives. The galaxy reeled. Some leaders felt anger. Others are ashamed. Many disbelief. Humanity had not hidden out of fear alone. They had hidden to act without permission. That makes you dangerous, Aresh said. Yes, the human agreed. To indifference. The Galactic Council fractured almost immediately. Some empires demanded sanctions. Others demanded alliance. A few threatened forces, but their own simulations betrayed them. Humanity's systems were too integrated, too distributed. There was no clear target. No decapitation strike. And worse, humanity had allies who didn't even know it yet. Smaller species began sharing their stories publicly. Worlds nearly lost. Calls unanswered. Aid that never came. Now they had proof that someone had been listening. Pressure mounted. Then, everything changed. A deep space alert triggered across multiple empires at once. An object had been detected beyond the galactic rim. Not a fleet. Not a star. Something old. Something massive. It did not communicate. It was consumed. Systems went dark as it passed. Entire regions of space fell silent. Not the patient silence humanity had endured, but absolute absence. Panic spread faster than light. This thing predates us, a galactic scientist reported. Our weapons barely register against it. Aresh felt dread coil through him. Has Earth detected it? The council demanded. The answer came back immediately. Yes. Humanity already had. Another channel opened. This time, the human faces looked tired. We know what it is, one said. We're close enough. Can you stop it? Aresh asked. Yes. Hope flared across the galaxy. Then the human continued. But the cost is unacceptable. Silence. What cost? Aresh asked slowly. The human did not answer right away. When they did, the words landed like gravity. It requires a system-wide energy release, they said. On our scale. Aresh understood instantly. You would destroy Earth. Yes. Across the galaxy, voices erupted. Protests. Denials. Orders shouted into chaos. No, Aresh said sharply. There must be another way. There isn't, the human replied. Not in time. You cannot ask that. A council voice broke in. You cannot sacrifice your world for us. We are not asking. the human said softly. We are informing. The calm was unbearable. We prepared for this, another human added. Not this exact threat, but the possibility that survival might require sacrifice. Aresh felt something crack inside him. You were willing to die, he said. Yes, the human answered, so that no one would be ignored again. That was the moment the galaxy truly understood. Humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was resolved by abandonment. They had lived with the idea of being alone. They had made peace with it. And now, they were ready to pay the final price to ensure no one else ever had to. But the galaxy was no longer silent. For the first time in its long history, empires spoke with one voice. Wait, Aresh said, almost pleading. Give us time. The human hesitated. Just slightly. That hesitation was everything. Because it meant humanity still hoped the galaxy could change. And the galaxy, terrified, ashamed, united, rushed to prove that it could. Time became the enemy. Across the galaxy, calculations ran without pause. Star forges burned hotter. Think tanks collapsed into arguments, and then into silence as the numbers refused to change. The object beyond the rim was not slowing. It did not maneuver like a ship. It did not radiate like a star. It behaved like a wound in space itself, moving steadily inward, swallowing energy, matter, and information as if the universe were correcting an error. Entire systems went dark behind it. Not destroyed, erased. Sensors that tried to observe it returned contradictions, or nothing at all. Messages sent through regions it had passed never arrived. The galaxy had faced extinction events before. This was different. This was not an accident. Humanity's projections were clear, brutal, honest. If it reaches the inner spiral, a human analyst said, there will be no containment, no recovery. The cascade will spread faster than coordinated response. How long? A galactic counselor demanded. The answer echoed across every chamber. Months, not centuries, not generations, months. Fleet Commander Aresh stood before a display showing the projected path. It cut through space like a blade aimed at the heart of civilization. And your solution? He asked, though he already knew. The human representative did not look at the projection. We collapse the local space-time gradient, she said. We starve it. And the cost? Aresh asked quietly. Our system, the human replied. All of it. Earth, the moon, Mars. Every habitat, archive, and living soul. Gone. The galaxy erupted. You can't allow this. There must be another way. We'll share our technology. We'll evacuate you. Humanity listened. They had always listened. Evacuation projections appeared instantly. Not enough time. Not enough capacity. Not without destabilizing entire regions. Saving humanity that way would doom millions elsewhere. Humanity had done the math long before the council finished shouting. We will proceed, the human said calmly, unless a viable alternative is presented. Silence fell. Because for the first time, the galaxy faced a truth it had avoided for millennia. There were problems that could not be solved by force or hierarchy alone. And there was a species willing to pay a price no empire ever had. On Earth, the truth was finally revealed to the public. There was no panic. There was grief. Cities fell quiet, not in chaos, but in shared understanding. People held one another. Families gathered. Old arguments were dropped without apology. Humanity had faced extinction before, many times. This time, it was chosen. A final message was broadcast, not just to the galaxy, but inward, to Earth. We live because we learned to stand alone, the message said. We endure because we choose what we stand for. Across the planet, volunteers flooded infrastructure nodes, not to fight, but to ensure stability to the very end. Power grids were balanced. Data archives prioritized. Cultural records compressed and transmitted outward, not as a legacy of dominance, but of memory. Let us be known, the message continued, not for what we destroyed, but for what we refused to abandon. The activation sequence began. Deep beneath Earth's surface, systems older than most nations came online for the first time at full capacity. Energy flowed not like a weapon, but like a tide, drawn from layers of reality humanity had spent centuries learning to touch gently. In orbit, human platforms aligned, not in defensive formation, but in symmetry. A pattern, a goodbye written in physics. Fleet Commander Aresh watched, helpless. You trusted us with your existence, he said, voice breaking. And we failed you. The human representative looked at him then. No, she said. You heard us. That matters. The object beyond the rim reacted. For the first time, it changed course slightly, as if sensing resistance. The countdown reached its final phase. And then, a new signal tore through the network. Not human, not ancient, galactic. A unified channel opened. Something that had never existed before. Stop. The word carried weight because it was not a request. Aresh turned toward the source, stunned. What is this? The human asked. It's everyone, Aresh whispered. All of us. The galaxy had made a decision. Emergency protocols activated across dozens of civilizations at once. Star drives were repurposed. Planetary cores synchronized. Energy that had been hoarded for war was redirected toward one goal. Containment. Not a replacement. Assistance. We can't match your output, the galactic signal said. But we can share the load. Human analysts recalculated at impossible speed. Probability curves shifted. Marginally. Then sharply. It's possible, one said, disbelief in his voice. With external stabilization, Earth might survive the release. The human command chamber froze. Would you risk your own systems? The human representative asked. Yes, the galaxy replied. Because silence brought us here. And we refuse to let it speak again. For the first time in its long history, the galaxy did not wait for a single power to decide. It acted together. The energy surge began, not as a single catastrophic burst, but as a woven structure. Countless civilizations feeding power, structure, and stability into a shared lattice anchored at Earth. The ancient object screamed, not audibly, but in distortions that shook sensors across half the galaxy. Space bent. Time staggered. And then, slowly, impossibly, the object starved. It collapsed inward, devouring itself as the gradient it fed on vanished. The threat ended not with explosion, but with absence. Silence returned. A different kind. Earth still existed. Scarred. Exhausted. But alive. Across the planet, people looked up at the sky, unsure what they were seeing, but feeling something had changed forever. Fleet Commander Aresh sank into his chair. They saved you, he said. The human representative shook her head. No, she replied. They stood with us. That distinction mattered, because it meant humanity was no longer alone. In the aftermath, damage reports flooded in. Systems lost. Borders destabilized. Old rivalries rendered meaningless by shared survival. But no one complained, because something unprecedented had occurred. A species had been willing to die for the galaxy. And the galaxy, at the last moment, had been willing to change. Humanity did not celebrate. They mourned the cost. But they also remembered the choice. And across the stars, every civilization began to understand the truth that would echo for ages. Power could protect. Technology could destroy it. But only sacrifice could unite. The galaxy would never forget the moment it almost let humanity disappear. Because humanity had shown them what silence truly cost. The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no victory parades across the stars. No monuments raised in the immediate aftermath. No triumphant declarations echoing through the great halls of empire. Instead, there was silence. Not the careless silence that had once swallowed forgotten worlds. A deliberate one. In the weeks following the containment, ships remained where they were. Fleets that had arrived ready for intimidation or conquest did not leave. They powered down weapons. They opened channels. They waited. Earth did not speak first. Humanity has learned the danger of rushing to fill the void. On the planet below, recovery began slowly. Cities repaired damaged infrastructure. Power grids stabilized. Oceans calmed. The sky, once threaded with unfamiliar energy patterns, returned to blue. People mourned quietly. Not everyone had survived the strain. There were losses, small compared to extinction, but heavy in human terms. Names were read. Stories were shared. No one called it victory. They called it survival with witnesses. That mattered more than anyone had expected. Fleet Commander Aresh remained in orbit longer than protocol allowed. He was not ordered to leave. No one asked him to stay. Yet he remained. From his vantage point, Earth no longer looked small. It looked anchored, as if the universe itself had adjusted slightly to accommodate it. Reports flowed into the Galactic Council faster than they could be processed. Damage assessments, energy debts, political fallout. But beneath all of it ran a single, undeniable fact. The galaxy still existed because a forgotten species had been willing to disappear. That truth reshaped everything. In the great archive worlds, historians began rewriting timelines, not adding new chapters, but correcting omissions. Entire sections labeled uncontacted, low priority, non-viable were re-examined. Survey routes were questioned. Decisions made centuries ago were dragged into the light. For the first time, the galaxy asked itself a question it had long avoided. How many others had waited in silence? Smaller civilizations felt the change first. Messages arrived where none ever had before. Aid convoys rerouted. Observers dispatched not to evaluate usefulness, but existence. A simple shift in language spread through official channels. Unregistered became uncontacted. Non-contributing became at risk. Words mattered. They always had. Humanity noticed the difference, but did not comment. They had learned that change forced by guilt rarely lasted. Change born of understanding sometimes did. Weeks after the event, Earth finally transmitted again. Not a demand, not a warning, a record. They sent out the full account of what had happened. Not just the technology or the calculations, but the debate, the hesitation, the moment when humanity had chosen sacrifice without knowing if anyone would answer. They did not frame themselves as heroes. They framed themselves as a case study. This is what silence creates, the message concluded. And this is what listening can prevent. The transmission spread everywhere. Some empires tried to suppress it. Others archived it quietly. Many watched it in full, unsettled by the calm honesty of a species that had every reason to be bitter and chose not to be. Fleet Commander Aresh requested one final meeting. This time, the channel opened to a single human. Older, tired, real. You stayed, the human said. Yes, Aresh replied. I needed to understand. And do you? The human asked. Aresh considered the question carefully. I understand why the galaxy went silent, he said at last. The human raised an eyebrow. Because it realized how close it came to losing you, Aresh continued. And because it finally understood what you represent. And that is? The human asked. Aresh spoke slowly, choosing words that would echo far beyond the channel. You are not powerful because of what you can destroy, he said. You are powerful because you decided what you would never ignore again. The human said nothing. That, too, was deliberate. In the cycles that followed, Earth changed, but not in the way many had feared. Humanity did not rush to expand. They did not colonize aggressively. They did not claim territory or demand seats of authority. Instead, they became something new. A constant. Human observers joined survey fleets, not as leaders, but as witnesses. Human algorithms were shared openly, not as weapons, but as early warning systems for extinction-level events. When disasters loomed, anonymous interventions increased, not all human, but coordinated through networks humanity had helped design. No flags were planted, no credit demanded, and slowly, quietly, a phrase began circulating among the stars. Check the quiet ones. It became doctrine, because every commander now understood what silence might mean. Children on distant worlds learned a new story in their education cycles. Not a myth, not propaganda, a historical truth. Once, there was a species that waited alone beneath an unremarkable star. They called out. No one answered. So they prepared, not to conquer the universe, but to endure it. And when the universe finally looked their way, it nearly let them die. That lesson lingered. Earth itself became something unprecedented. A protected world, not by decree, but by consensus. Not a throne. A reminder. Ships passing through the region reduced speed automatically. Weapons powered down without orders. No one wanted to be the one who broke the unspoken rule. This world mattered. Years later, long after the damage had faded into memory, a new civilization made its first tentative broadcasts into space. Weak, uncertain, afraid. This time, the galaxy did not wait centuries. A reply was sent within days. Not from Earth. From everyone. Fleet Commander Aresh retired not long after. On his final day of service, he stood once more at the viewport, watching Earth recede as his ship turned away. A junior officer asked him the question that still circulated in academies. Commander, why did the galaxy fall silent when Earth was discovered? Aresh did not answer immediately. He remembered the stillness after the first boundary was drawn. The moment the ancient object had been stopped. The soundless realization that everything had almost ended, not because of malice, but neglect. The galaxy went silent, he said finally, because it realized it had been speaking too loudly to hear what mattered. The officer frowned. And what was that? Aresh smiled faintly. That survival doesn't belong to the strongest, he said. It belongs to those who remember. As his ship entered hyperspace, Earth vanished from view. But it was no longer alone. And somewhere, deep in the data cores of countless civilizations, a single truth was archived where it could never be erased. Humanity was not forgotten anymore. Not because they demanded to be seen, but because, when the moment came, they chose to stand, quietly, decisively, and together, against the end of everything. That was why the galaxy went silent. Not in fear, but in awe.